What's going on, everyone? So I made a video the other day talking about the other bracket and if the Lakers should have tanked. And if, in hindsight, looking back, that might have been the better decision, right? Because Oklahoma City, they ended up losing to Dallas Mavericks. Dallas is now in the conference finals. And many people hold the sentiment of, like, the Lakers should have tanked that game, played Sacramento, and then they would have been up against the Thunder, then Dallas, then the Minnesota Timberwolves. And one of the things that I talked about in that video was that, hey, if Minnesota beats Denver, well, then now that kind of makes that argument even bigger. I said we'd talk about it if Minnesota beat Denver. Well, guess what? Minnesota beat Denver. First off, I want to say thank you. Okay? Thank you to the Minneapolis Lakers for handling business and beating the Denver Nuggets. I'm so glad Mike Malone got a big piece of humble pie. One of my favorite things is that Anthony Edwards is like waving bye to the crowd and all of the Denver people are getting all upset, all the players, which in their defense, the Denver players aren't the ones that have really just been obnoxious, right? The players have given the Lakers their credit and have been very respectful in that regard. It's the coach. Mike Malone is the one that just kept running his mouth over and over and over again, and is over there crying about like the media just wants to talk about the Lakers. And it's like every opportunity you have, you're mentioning the Lakers. At your own parade, when you won the championship, all you did was talk about the Lakers. So all you're doing is adding fuel to the fire and then crying about it, right? So it's just really nice to see Mike Malone just have to eat sand a little bit and kind of, you're watching him on the podium sitting there crying and making excuses and pouting and stuff. It's just karma's beautiful, right? It's just a beautiful thing. But I digress, right? Very happy Minnesota handled Denver. And now Minnesota, look, they're primed and ready. I want Minnesota to beat Dallas. I think that they will beat Dallas. And more than anything, I want them to beat Dallas because I actually think Minnesota has a really good chance of beating Boston, and we need Boston to lose. Because I think, could the Pacers maybe make some noise, especially without Porzingis for the Boston Celtics? Possibly, but I think ultimately Boston's going to walk through them, and then they'll be in the NBA Finals. So please, Minnesota, handle business. You got one. We need you to beat Dallas, and then we need you to handle one more team for us, and then we'll be in good shape. But again, getting back to the bracket side of things. Now, I want to start off by saying, personally, I think the Lakers still made the right decision, right? I'll get my thoughts on this out of the way, and then we'll touch on the other side of it, make the other argument. And, of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, so let me know down in the comments below. But my opinion, I just think a couple things. One, you run the risk of, like, if you tank that first game to the Pelicans, right? You run the risk of now it's a one-and-done type situation, and you could miss the playoffs entirely. And to me, it's like the Lakers just kept getting break after break after break after break, right? The basketball gods just kept rewarding the Lakers, try to keep them in it, and it's like, do you really want to tempt that, right? The other thing is, too, as we know, the Lakers would have played Sacramento. Now, Sacramento wouldn't have had Malik Monk, so maybe things would have been a little different. But Sabonis is like 11-0 against Anthony Davis. Some like ridiculous stat line like that, right? I believe it's 11-0. So just based on history and the track record, there is a very good chance the Lakers will lose to Sacramento, and now they're not even in the playoffs. So to me, I would have rather have had the chance, is what I always talked about. And even in hindsight, we lost. Again, like, look, I am one of those people that I don't believe, losing in the first round is the same as losing in the second or conference finals, because your job as an organization and as players and as a team is to advance as far as possible. You see people that are, try to make the argument. But in this case, playing Denver, yes, you may have had the possibility of never playing Denver and avoiding Denver, and chances are the Lakers would have been in good shape, but you also run the risk of just missing the playoffs entirely. And you can make the argument of how do things look? Because, for example, right, let's say we do beat the Thunder, right? It is very possible we just get ran through by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I believe that we could beat Minnesota. I think many Laker fans believe that they could beat Minnesota. But if our guys show up against Denver or against Minnesota the way that they did against Denver, we're not beating Minnesota, right? If Rui, Austin Reeves, and D'Angelo Russell are basically no-shows for that series, we're not beating the team that we just saw play Denver and just sweep the Phoenix Suns and all that stuff. We're not, right? So again, there's always the possibility of you losing, or losing to, a Dallas, right? Let's say we go to this side, we beat the Thunder, and then you play Dallas and you lose to Dallas. Well, now that just makes things look so much worse, right? Because the perception and idea right now is that if the Lakers beat Denver, they win the championship. Like, Denver was the one obstacle that we cannot overcome and the one hurdle we cannot beat, right? We can't jump, right? But if you lose to somebody else, now there's that idea and sentiment of, like, okay, we are a lot farther away than we really think we are. Like, right now, it kind of feels like, man, we're like a piece or two away and we could be winning a championship. And I still think that regardless, but it changes the narrative and the media aspect and everything, which influences the organization and the team and stuff like that, right? Because now there might be a little bit more of a sense of desperation and blowing things up, and maybe we do go get a Trae Young rather than like getting a DeJounte and a Jared Allen or something. Again, like those little things can impact and have ripple effects. It's the butterfly effect, right? So I do have those concerns. And again, only one team gets to say that they are good enough to win a championship. Now, there are multiple teams that are a contender, and there are all the teams in the playoffs that all believe that they can win, but only one team actually does. And only one team gets to say, we were that team this year. And to me, if the Lakers can't beat Denver in the first round, then they weren't good enough. They clearly weren't that team. And matchups are a big theme. Matchups are important, but we still would have had a matchup against Minnesota, and I still think we lose to Minnesota, right? Based on how we played. Now, on the other side of things, right, because we'll talk about both sides, sticking with that narrative of like the teams we play, you can make an argument that the players may have been better, and us winning round after round might have given us more confidence, more momentum, and just better understanding and grasp of, once we got to Minnesota. Right? Because again, I don't like the team we saw play Denver. I don't know if they beat this Minnesota team we just saw. Also, one last thing that is kind of a caveat: how healthy are we by the time we play Minnesota in the conference finals? It's another thing too, right? LeBron and Anthony Davis, they were healthy, they were great, but can they stay healthy? Right? There's a lot of, when you're talking about this stuff, you talk about a lot of what ifs and maybes and hypotheticals, right? So you got to, again, have the hypothetical on all fronts. But getting back to the pros is, if you did tank, and let's say you did beat Sacramento and you did end up you played the Thunder in the first round, I wholeheartedly, fully believe the Lakers beat the Thunder, and I think that they beat them pretty swiftly. Even watching how they performed in those first two rounds, I still have a lot of confidence that the Lakers probably beat them in maybe 5 or 6. Because the inexperience, because not only would it be a bad matchup for the Thunder and their lack of size, secondly, in that matchup, those tight games, you saw, and especially in the Dallas series, the Thunder's lack of inexperience and immaturity at times, and them collapse. I don't see that happen, especially with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, right? So you win the first round, in my opinion. Then you're going to play Dallas. Now, look, Kyrie and Luka, don't sleep on them. Don't sleep on this Dallas team either, right? I do believe that we would have and could have beaten Dallas, but it wouldn't have shocked me if Dallas beats the Lakers, right? Luka and Kyrie, Lakers have not had a good track record against Dallas the last, year and a half. So, but I do think that they would have beaten them. But here's the thing. One of the things that I talked about and I hit on and tried to really drive in going into that Denver series was, to me, it boiled down to the other guys. I said LeBron James and Anthony Davis would neutralize or be better than Jokic and Jamal Murray. Guess what happened? LeBron James and Anthony Davis collectively were better than Jamal Murray and Jokic collectively, right? My concern was the other guys. Can D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, so on and so forth, can they step up enough to basically outperform Aaron Gordon, KCP, and Michael Porter Jr., right? And then I thought our bench would outperform their bench. In hindsight now, that wasn't the case, right? Like, Michael Porter Jr. was prime Klay Thompson against us. KCP was huge for them. Aaron Gordon just out-hustled us game in and game out, night in and night out, right? Their role guys outplayed our role guys, and we lost. We lost the series. But if you were to play, say, a Thunder team, there is this idea of like, it's just this, the Lakers just have this dark cloud with Denver that they haven't been able to, this hurdle that they can't get over, right? D'Lo just seems to have his struggles against Denver, right? Like Reeves, which was surprising, like the first like 3 games of that series looked petrified out there, which is odd because he was averaging 20 a game. Right? I think he gave us 21 last go around. But the first 3 games, he looked like he didn't even want to be out there. Right? Rui was like unplayable. Right? D'Lo was like every other game. And it's like, that was the problem. But if you were to play, say, a Thunder team, maybe it's different. Right? You play a Thunder team, maybe D'Lo is better, right? Because he has more confidence and he's going up against a different matchup. And he feels like, oh, these guys are young. They can't guard me. I can beat them, right? And he gets going and he gets his confidence. And Austin Reeves gets cooking and Rui Hachimura gets cooking, right? Like, it is possible that our role guys would have been much better against a Thunder team than they would have been against this Nuggets team. And then that translates into the Dallas matchup, which, again, I think our guys, if they step up, we win that series. And then maybe you have the confidence to go into that Minnesota series and dominate that matchup as well, right? All the regular season games were really close. And that one, 2 of those were without LeBron, right? Like, so, and they weren't playoffs. So I do think that there is an argument to be made of like, we should have, you know, if we were in that other bracket, we'd be bare minimum in the conference finals right now, very likely in the NBA finals, right? Because that was the whole idea. That was the whole argument, right? That was the whole logic of like, you go to the other bracket, you play the Thunder, now we know, Mavs, and then you would have played Minnesota because the idea was that, okay, worst case scenario, we play Denver in the 3rd round, and maybe something goes our way and we're able to put up a fight and win, or we get lucky and somebody else beats them along the way. Well, guess what? Now somebody else beat them along the way, so we never would have had to see Denver. So it begs the question of like, would it be the same result, right? But me personally, I think we would have. I think there's still an argument that you could have lost. I think, again, you still would have had to beat Sacramento, which, again, based on the track record, it's more likely Sacramento beats you. And, you know, I don't like the tempting fate. Again, like I said, I wanted the smoke, got the smoke, we lost. All right? It happens. Sometimes you gotta take a butt whooping in order to bounce back and be better. Right? So I can live with that because the Lakers made the right decision, right? The Lakers made the right choice. Why risk Sacramento, even without Malik Monk, Sacramento just shooting the lights out and sending you home, right? Like, I would rather, again, the goal is to advance as far as possible, right? So if you advance and you beat Denver, imagine if you didn't even make the playoffs. Imagine what that does and what the media does with that and how that influences the Lakers. It's just, I believe the Lakers made the right decision. Lakers just weren't good enough this year. It's what it is, right? They just weren't good enough this year. It sucks. It's hard to say. Tough pill to swallow, but that's the reality, right? And reality is reality, right? They weren't good enough, no? And I just don't think like, oh, well, now they would have been good enough, right? Like, I just still think along the way, would they have beaten Boston? Would they have beaten Minnesota, right? I can't buy that based on the product that we saw against Denver, right? Like, we only have the information that we have. And the information that we have shows guys didn't show up. And if they don't show up against Thunder, we could lose. If they don't show up against Dallas, we could lose. And if they don't show up against Minnesota, we definitely lose. Or Boston, we definitely lose. So if based on what we saw, the product that was put out there in the Denver series, assuming that that's the team that we had going forward, I don't have the confidence to believe that they would have beaten all of these other teams and won an NBA championship. Again, maybe things would have been different because you didn't have to play Denver. So maybe guys would have been a little more confident, a little more, like, hey, we can do this type thing. So it's a possibility. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Whatever they are, I love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.